The impact threw Keller Vance against his restraints with bone-crushing force. Emergency lights pulsed crimson as his ship, the Horizon, tore through the atmosphere of Morvaxis. Alarms screamed warnings he already knew. Engine failure. Navigation. Gone, hull integrity compromised. Mayday, mayday. This is Exploration Vessel Horizon. Catastrophic systems failure on approach to Morvaxis. Coordinates. The transmission died mid-sentence as the communication array ripped away. Keller fought the controls as the ship plummeted toward the planet's surface, an endless expanse of mist-shrouded swampland. The horizon sliced through fog banks thick as cotton, giving him only glimpses of the looming disaster below, twisted trees, bubbling bogs, and strange formations like giant fingers reaching skyward. The impact came with a deafening crash. Metal screamed as the ship carved a trench through mud and vegetation before slamming to a halt. The silence that followed was almost as jarring as the crash itself. Keller hung limply in his harness, blood trickling down his forehead. His ribs screamed in protest as he unbuckled himself, collapsing onto the tilted floor. Every breath was agony. Dragging himself to the emergency kit, he grabbed a pressure sealant, applying it to a gash on his leg before forcing the damaged hatch open. Humid air rushed in, carrying scents of decay and alien vegetation. Keller stumbled outside, scanning his surroundings through the dense fog. Bioluminescent fungi cast an eerie blue glow across the landscape, revealing a primordial swamp stretching in all directions. A low, rumbling growl froze him in place. Something massive was moving beneath the murky water. Something with intent. As Keller backed toward his ship, the ground beneath him suddenly gave way. He plunged into cold, viscous water, his injured leg immediately seizing with pain. The predator circled closer. Through the murk, Keller glimpsed a sinuous shape, rows of teeth gleaming in phosphorescent light, then movement from above. A lithe figure dropped from the canopy, landing on a root formation near the water's edge. With impossible grace, the newcomer launched a spear that struck the unseen creature. A piercing shriek echoed through the swamp as the predator retreated. Slender hand reached down, gripping Keller's wrist with surprising strength. As he was pulled from the water, he found himself face to face with his rescuer, a woman, yet clearly not human. Her skin had a faint iridescent sheen, her eyes large and golden with vertical pupils. Gill-like structures pulsed subtly at her. "Neck, you shouldn't be here, Skyman," she said in accented but clear English. "Nothing survives in the deep mire for long. I didn't exactly plan this vacation," Keller gasped, clutching his injured ribs. The alien woman, Thalea, regarded him with suspicion. "The storm comes. You'll die if you stay. Follow or don't. Your choice." 3 days had passed since Thalea brought Keller to her sanctuary, a hollowed-out chamber within a massive tree that rose like an island from the swamp. His wounds were healing thanks to the poultices she'd applied, though his ribs still ached with each breath. "I need to retrieve parts from my ship," Keller announced, strapping on the makeshift boot Thalea had crafted for him. The distress beacon might still work. Thalea looked up from where she was sorting phosphorescent fungi. "Your metal shell is already half swallowed by the bog, and what lies between us and it hunts better than you move." "I'm leaving this planet," Keller insisted, "with or without your help." Her golden eyes narrowed. "Without my help, you're already dead." She rose fluidly, her movements graceful despite her irritation. "But perhaps watching you fail will be entertaining." They set out at dawn, Thalea leading the way across a network of massive roots and floating vegetation. The mist swirled around them, occasionally revealing glimpses of the alien landscape, carnivorous plants that snapped at passing insects, floating gas sacs that burst with sulfurous clouds. "Step exactly where I step," Thalea warned, her webbed feet finding purchase on seemingly unstable ground. The hunger moss looks solid but will dissolve your flesh in moments. Keller followed, carefully studying his mysterious guide. Despite her hostility, there was something regal in her bearing. "You're not just some swamp dweller, are you? How do you know my language?" "My people have observed yours for generations," she replied tersely. "Knowledge is survival." A sudden movement caught Keller's eye, a ripple in a seemingly solid patch of ground. "Thaleia!" The warning came too late. A massive serpentine creature erupted from beneath a camouflaged burrow, its segmented body bristling with spiked appendages. Thaleia's spear was in her hand instantly, but the beast's tail whipped around, knocking her sideways into a tangle of vines. Keller acted on instinct. Grabbing Thaleia's fallen knife, he lunged forward as the creature turned toward her. Its hide was tough, but he found the soft spot behind what passed for its head, driving the blade deep. The beast thrashed wildly before collapsing in a heap of twitching segments. Breathing hard, Keller extended his hand to Thaleia. She hesitated before accepting it, her cool fingers wrapping around his. "Your wound reopened," she observed, noting the blood seeping through his makeshift bandage. "Worth it," he replied with a pained smile. Something shifted in her expression. Not quite trust, but reassessment. "Perhaps you're not completely helpless, Skyman." She gathered her weapons, then pointed toward a ridge where metal gleamed through. The mist. "Your ship is there. We should hurry. Blood attracts worse things than what you just killed." As they continued their journey, Keller noticed Thaleia kept closer to him, her posture less guarded. When they reached the wreckage of the horizon, she helped him search for salvageable parts without complaint. "Why are you alone here?" Keller asked as they worked. "Where are your people?" Thaleia's hands stilled. "My people decided I should no longer be among them." She looked up, meeting his eyes directly for the first time. "We all have our crashes, Keller Vance. Mine just wasn't in a ship." Lightning tore through the sky, illuminating the roiling clouds that had descended upon the swamp with frightening speed. The salvaged components from the horizon weighed heavily in Keller's pack as he and Thaleia raced toward shelter. "The breath of Morvaxis," Thaleia shouted over the howling wind. "It will flood everything below the ridgeline." They scrambled, up a rocky incline, the ground growing increasingly treacherous as rain pelted down in sheets. Keller slipped, his injured leg buckling beneath him. Without hesitation, Thaleia was there, her arm around his waist, supporting him as they climbed. "There!" She pointed toward a narrow opening in the cliff face. "The deep hollows. Inside, the..." Cave extended farther than Keller expected, its walls embedded with the same bioluminescent fungi that lit the swamp. Thaleia moved with practiced efficiency, gathering dry moss for a fire while Keller arranged their salvaged supplies. "How long will the storm last?" he asked, watching her kindle a flame with striking stones. "3 cycles of darkness, perhaps 4. She settled beside the growing fire, her skin glistening with rainwater that caught the blue-green light. "We are fortunate. The last breath drowned an entire valley." As the fire cast dancing shadows across the cave walls, Keller found himself studying Thaleia's features. The delicate gill structures at her neck, the subtle patterns that traced her shoulders and arms like living tattoos. She was alien, yet there was a beauty to her that transcended species. "You're staring," she said without looking up. "Sorry," Keller replied, embarrassed. "It's just, I've never met anyone like you." A faint smile touched her lips. "Nor I you. Your skin is strange, so dry, so warm." The storm raged outside, but within their sanctuary something shifted. Thaleia began to speak of her world, of the floating cities her people once built among the tallest trees, of songs that carried across the misty expanses, of traditions thousands of years old. "I was to lead my clan," she revealed, her voice softening, until the accusations came. Keller shared his own story, his life among the stars, the family he'd left behind on a distant colony, his dreams of mapping unexplored worlds. "Do you miss them?" Thalia asked. "Your people?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "But out here, exploring, I feel more alive." As the night deepened, the temperature dropped. They moved closer to the fire, and inevitably, closer to each other. Thalia's skin was cool against his when their shoulders touched, but not unpleasantly. "So, your heat?" she murmured, leaning subtly into him. "It's comforting." Something electric passed between them, a recognition of mutual isolation, of shared resilience. Keller's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with her webbed ones. When their eyes met, the alienness between them seemed to fade. "In my culture," Thalia whispered, "we believe souls recognize each other across the void." Her touch was tentative as she traced the line of his jaw, exploring the unfamiliar texture of his stubble. Keller felt his breath catch as he mirrored her gesture, his fingertips gliding along the iridescent patterns on her cheek. Their first kiss was hesitant, a gentle press of lips that bridged worlds. Her skin tasted of sweet mineral water, exotic and intoxicating. As the storm raged outside, they discovered each other slowly, reverently, their bodies speaking a language that needed no translation. In the soft glow of bioluminescence, two beings from different stars found a connection that defied the vast emptiness that should have kept them apart forever. The distant whine of engines pierced the tranquility that had settled between Keller and Thalia during the days following the storm. They stood at the edge of a clearing, watching as a sleek black ship descended through Morvaxis's perpetual. "Mist hunters," Thalia whispered, her body tensing beside him. The intimacy they had shared in the cave had transformed into something deeper during their journey back to her sanctuary. But now fear replaced the warmth in her eyes. "That's a Meridian-class transport," Keller observed. "Commonwealth Registry." His heart raced with conflicting emotions. Potential rescue versus the dread in Thalia's expression. "They're not here for you," she said, backing away. "They're here for me. The bounty on my head would buy a small moon." Keller caught her arm. "What did you do?" "I was accused of murdering my sister, next in line for leadership after me." Her golden eyes held his. "I didn't do it, Keller. But evidence was fabricated, witnesses bribed. My own father signed the exile order." The ship landed with a mechanical hiss. Keller pulled Thalia deeper into the cover of massive ferns. "This is my chance to get off this planet," he said, thinking aloud. "If I help them find you—" The hurt that flashed across her face struck him like a physical blow. "I didn't mean—" he stammered. "No, you're right," she said coldly. "I've always known humans prioritize self-preservation. I was foolish to think you were different." She pulled away. "Go to them, but know they won't honor any bargain you make." Keller watched her disappear into the swamp, self-loathing rising in his throat. What was he thinking? After everything they'd shared, how could he even consider betraying her? He crept closer to the ship, staying hidden as the loading ramp descended. 4 figures emerged, 3 humans and a Vraxian mercenary, all heavily armed. Their leader, a scarred woman with cybernetic implants covering half her face, studied a tracking device. "The Kalari princess is close," she announced. "Her biosignature is unique. Find her, but I want her alive. Damaged goods pay less." The mercenaries spread out, weapons ready. Keller remained hidden, listening to their communications. "Remember, the bounty was placed by Counselor Dren," the leader continued. "He wants to parade her through the capital before her execution, make an example of her." "Seems excessive for a simple murder," one mercenary commented. The leader laughed. "Murder was just the excuse. She discovered Dren was selling mining rights to Commonwealth corporations. He's been poisoning the sacred pools for profit. The princess was gathering evidence when her sister caught her. The sister died in the struggle. Accident, not murder. But Dren twisted it. The revelation hit Keller like a thunderbolt. Thalia was innocent. Worse, she was a political target for trying to save her people. A scream echoed through the swamp, followed by Thalia's voice crying out in pain. Without hesitation, Keller grabbed a fallen weapon and moved toward the sound. Every instinct told him to run to the ship, his ticket home, but his heart pulled him in the opposite direction. As he raced through the underbrush, Keller realized the truth. Home wasn't a planet or a station anymore. Home was wherever Thalia was. The life he'd known seemed distant and hollow compared to what they'd found together in this dangerous paradise. Ahead, he could see the Vraxian dragging Thalia toward the ship, her attempts to fight back hampered by energy restraints. Blood trickled from a wound on her temple. Keller raised the stolen weapon. His choice was made. The Vraxian mercenary never saw the blast coming. It struck with precision, disabling his restraint control without harming Thalia. The other hunters whirled toward the source, weapons raised as Keller emerged from the mist. "Let her go," he demanded, keeping his stolen pulse rifle trained on the leader. The scarred woman smirked. "Another human? Interesting. What's your stake in this, stranger?" "She's innocent," Keller replied, moving closer to Thalia. "And she's under my protection." "Protection?" The leader laughed, her cybernetic eye glowing red as it scanned him. "You're just a stranded explorer. Walk away now, and we'll give you passage off this hellhole." For a moment, silence hung between them. The promise of return to civilization weighed against what he'd found in the mist. Keller's eyes met Thalia's, seeing in them a mixture of hope and resignation. "This hellhole," he said finally, "is her home. And now it's mine too." What followed was chaos. Keller fired first, forcing the hunters to scatter. Thalia, freed from her restraints, moved with lightning speed, using her knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. She pulled Keller behind a massive root as return fire split the air where they'd stood. "The ship," she whispered urgently. "If we can reach it—" A deafening roar interrupted her. The ground trembled as something massive emerged from the swamp. A creature of nightmare proportions, drawn by the commotion. The Leviathan of Morvaxis, a predator so legendary that even Thalia's people spoke of it in hushed tones. "The sacred guardian," she breathed in awe. The beast attacked indiscriminately, its massive jaws snapping one mercenary in half, while its tail sent another flying into the mist. The hunter's leader fired desperately at the creature, but her weapons seemed to only enrage it further. In the confusion, Keller and Thalia made their move, racing toward the hunter's ship. Inside, Keller's training took over. The engines hummed to life under his command. "We can leave," he said, hands flying over. "The controls. Find a neutral colony, start over." Thalia placed her cool hand over his, stopping him. "This is my world, Keller. I won't abandon it to Dren's corruption." Her eyes held his. "But I don't want to lose you either." Understanding dawned on him. Using the ship's communication array, Keller transmitted the hunter's conversation, the Ibday truth about Counselor Dren's betrayal, to every Kalari settlement and Commonwealth outpost within range. The evidence of Thalia's innocence and Dren's crimes was now public knowledge. "It won't be safe right away," he warned, as they set the ship to launch unmanned, a decoy for any who might follow. "Nothing worth having comes without risk," she replied, her fingers intertwining with his. Together they watched the ship disappear into the clouds, then turned toward the highlands where the swamp met the mountains. There, away from the deepest dangers but still within the embrace of Morvaxis's misty beauty, they would build something new. Months later, their home took shape, a dwelling that honored both their worlds. with a garden of earth plants adapting alongside native flora. From their terrace, they could see the vast expanse of swampland stretching to the horizon, no longer a prison, but a kingdom of possibility. "Do you ever regret staying?" Thalea asked one evening, as they watched twin moons rise through the mist. Keller pulled her close, his hands tracing the now familiar patterns on her skin. "How could I regret finding the one place in the universe where I truly belong?" Her kiss tasted of promise and belonging. Around them, the dangerous beauty of Morvaxis continued its ancient rhythms: predator and prey, growth and decay, storm and calm. But within their sanctuary, two beings from distant worlds had discovered that love could bridge even the vast gulf between stars. "To think," Thalea murmured against his lips, "all of this because you crashed in my swamp." "Best navigational error of my life," Keller replied with a smile, as the mists of Morvaxis swirled around them like a blessing.